The second day of the summit began with cold stares and whispered conversations that stopped whenever Lisa or Paul walked by. They entered the main chamber and found their seats isolated as other delegates had moved their chairs away from the Earth section. Lisa kept her face neutral despite feeling the weight of dozens of alien eyes watching her every move. She had faced dangerous situations before during her Special Forces training, but nothing had prepared her for being treated like a monster by beings who had never met her before. The morning session focused on interstellar trade agreements. When Paul raised his hand to speak about Earth's resources and manufacturing capabilities, the Arcturian chairperson acknowledged him with obvious reluctance. As Paul stood to address the gathering, several delegates ostentatiously turned their backs or covered their hearing organs. Earth is rich in minerals and biological diversity, Paul began, his voice steady despite the rude reception. We offer fair exchange of resources and knowledge with all peaceful. Peaceful? The word came from the Dravari ambassador, Krell, who had risen from his seat. His skin rippled with dark patterns that Lisa guessed indicated anger. Your kind speaks of peace while preparing for war. It is your nature. It is what you have always done. The chairperson chimed for order. Ambassador Krell, you will respect the protocols of this assembly. Earth has the floor. Krell sat down, but the damage was done. Paul finished his presentation to a room full of suspicious glares and then returned to his seat beside Lisa. This isn't working, he whispered. We need to understand what they think we did. During the midday break, Lisa spotted a blue-skinned humanoid from the Centauri Alliance standing alone at a refreshment station. The Centauri had been Earth's first alien contact and had generally been friendly. Lisa approached carefully, trying to appear non-threatening. Hello, she said. Lisa Ward from Earth. The Centauri female looked around nervously before responding. I know who you are. I'm Kate Lee, junior diplomat. Her English was perfect, as the Centauri took pride in learning the languages of other species. Kate, what's happening here? Why is everyone treating us like we're carrying a deadly disease? Kate looked uncomfortable, her large eyes darting to check if anyone was watching them talk. You really don't know? The Orion conflict was the bloodiest interspecies war in recorded galactic history. A species identical to humans led the most feared military force the galaxy had ever seen. Lisa kept her voice low. That's impossible. We've only had faster-than-light travel for 15 years. Earth never fought in any interstellar war. Kate's expression softened slightly. The historical records are very clear. The conflict ended almost 200 of your Earth years ago. Over 30 species were involved and billions died. She hesitated, then added, There's a museum wing dedicated to the conflict here on the station. I could take you there tonight? When it's less crowded, Lisa nodded gratefully. Please. We need to understand. The afternoon sessions were no better than the morning. By the end of the day, Lisa felt mentally exhausted from maintaining a diplomatic face while being treated with open hostility. She met Paul in their quarters and told him about Kate's offer. A museum? Good thinking, he said. If we can see what they believe happened, maybe we can find the truth. That night, Kate led them through quiet corridors to a section of the station dedicated to galactic history. The lighting was dim, with spotlights illuminating displays and artifacts. Kate used her diplomatic access to enter after hours, when no other visitors would see them together. This way, she said, leading them to a large chamber marked The Orion Conflict, Never Again. Lisa felt a chill as they entered. The first display showed a star map highlighting the Orion sector, a region of space about 60 light-years from Earth. As they moved deeper into the exhibit, holographic displays activated, showing scenes from the war. Lisa stopped breathing for a moment. The soldiers in the holograms were unmistakably human. They wore black and gray uniforms with a symbol Lisa didn't recognize, but their faces could have belonged to anyone walking the streets of any Earth city. The display showed them engaging in combat, their tactics unpredictable and devastating, according to the information panels. These can't be humans from Earth, Paul whispered, his face pale in the blue light of the holograms. We were still using steam engines and fighting with muskets when this supposedly happened. Kate pointed to another display. This is what everyone remembers most. Why there are such strict rules about military presence at peace summits. The hologram showed a scene from a peace conference much like the current one. Delegates from various species sat around a circular table. Among them were several humans in formal attire, with military officers standing behind them. As the diplomatic talks progressed, the human military suddenly drew weapons and began attacking the other delegates. The massacre was brief and brutal. According to the historical record, this incident triggered the full-scale war, Kate explained. The human military representatives attacked without warning or provocation, killing every other delegate. When questioned later, the human leaders claimed it was a preemptive strike because they had intelligence that the other species were planning to attack Earth. Earth? They specifically mentioned Earth? Lisa asked, her mind racing. Yes, they called themselves Terrans. From Earth. That's why everyone is so afraid now that actual humans from the planet Earth have appeared. Kate looked at them with genuine confusion. If you're not the same humans, who were they? Paul studied the display carefully. The uniform insignia, the weapons, the ships shown in these records, none of them match anything from Earth's history. He turned to Kate. Is there more information about where these humans came from? Any record of their home system? Kate moved to a computer terminal and entered a few commands. The records state that the Terran fleet originated from a planet called Earth in the Sol system. They claim to be the only intelligent species from their world. She looked up. That's why everyone was shocked when your signals were detected coming from the same coordinates 3 years ago. Many believed it was the beginning of another Terran expansion. Lisa felt a cold knot in her stomach. So either these were humans from Earth who somehow had space traveled 2 centuries before we developed it, or someone wants the galaxy to think humans are dangerous, Paul finished. Someone created a false history, Kate looked troubled. That would be an elaborate deception spanning centuries. Who would benefit from isolating Earth from the rest of the galaxy? Lisa wondered aloud. As they left the museum, Lisa noticed a tall, gray-skinned figure watching them from the shadows. When their eyes met, the figure turned and quickly walked away. She made a mental note to find out which species had gray skin and what their interest might be in Earth. Back in their quarters, Paul contacted Earth intelligence with their findings. Lisa stared out at the stars, thinking about the fake humans, who had apparently committed atrocities in Earth's name long before real humans had even reached the moon. Someone had gone to extraordinary lengths to make the galaxy fear humanity. The question was why, and more importantly, what would they do now that real humans had joined the galactic community despite the deception? Lisa woke early on the 3rd day of the summit with the strange feeling of being watched. She had years of training that had sharpened her instincts, and those instincts were now sending warning signals. After a quick shower, she joined Paul for breakfast in their quarters rather than eating in the common dining area where they would face more cold stares and whispers. Earth intelligence sent a response overnight, Paul said, sliding his tablet across the table to her. They've been digging through old archives. There are some strange gaps in our early space exploration records from the 18th and 19th centuries. Lisa nearly choked on her coffee. Space exploration in the 18th century? We barely had telescopes then, exactly. But there are references in some classified historical documents about secret programs and unexplained disappearances of scientists and military personnel. Paul took the tablet back and scrolled through the report. Nothing concrete, just hints that something unusual was happening. Things that were covered up or forgotten over time. Lisa considered this new information. So you think it's possible that some humans did reach space centuries before the official space programs? I don't know what to think anymore, Paul admitted. But I know we need allies here. The Centauri seem willing to talk to us. Perhaps there are others. As they left their quarters to attend the morning session, Lisa immediately noticed they were being followed. A tall, gray-skinned figure stayed about 20 meters behind them, trying to blend in with other delegates but clearly tracking their movements. It was the same being she had spotted at the museum the night before. "Don't look now, but we have a shadow," she murmured to Paul. Gray skin, about 2 meters tall, wearing what looks like research attire rather than diplomatic clothes. Paul nodded slightly. "I see him. Tellarite from the scientific community, not the diplomatic corps. Let's split up. You head to the east corridor and double back. I'll continue to the main chamber." Lisa casually turned at the next junction while Paul continued straight ahead. She moved quickly through a service corridor, cut through a small garden area that connected different parts of the station, and emerged behind her follower. The gray-skinned being was still focused on Paul, unaware that Lisa was now following him. She closed the distance silently and spoke just behind him. "Interesting view from back here, isn't it?" The Tellarite jumped and spun around, his large eyes widening in surprise. "Commander Ward, I was just following us." "Yes, I noticed." Lisa kept her stance relaxed but ready. "Care to explain why?" The Tellarite looked around nervously. "Not here, please, it's not safe," Lisa assessed him quickly. He seemed genuinely afraid rather than threatening. "What's your name?" "Researcher Vorn. I study historical conflicts, specializing in the Orion period." He lowered his voice. "I need to speak with you and Ambassador Grant privately. What I have to say cannot be overheard." Lisa made a quick decision. "There's a small conference room near our quarters that's not scheduled for use today. Meet us there in 1 hour." Vorn nodded gratefully and hurried away, constantly checking over his shoulder as if afraid of being seen talking to her. The morning session was filled with technical discussions about interstellar communication protocols. That would normally have interested Lisa, but she found herself watching the room instead, noting which species seemed hostile and which merely seemed cautious. The Dravari delegation was openly aggressive, while others like the crystalline Arcturians maintained a formal politeness that revealed nothing of their true feelings. An hour later, Lisa and Paul waited in the small conference room. Researcher Vorn arrived precisely on time, carrying a datapad and looking even more nervous than before. "Thank you for meeting me," he said as Lisa secured the door. "I've studied the Orion conflict extensively for decades. There are inconsistencies in the official records that few have noticed or cared about." "What kind of inconsistencies?" Paul asked. Vorn activated his datapad, projecting a series of images showing the supposed human soldiers from the historical archives. "Look at their movements, their tactics. I've analyzed thousands of hours of battle footage." Lisa studied the projections carefully. "They look human, but something seems off about how they move." "Exactly." Vorn seemed pleased by her observation. "Their movements are too uniform, too perfect. Real species have variations in fighting styles, regional differences in tactics. These humans fought identically, regardless of their unit or apparent rank." "You're suggesting they weren't really human at all," Paul said slowly. "I believe they were another species mimicking human appearance," Vorn confirmed. "A species with shape-shifting capabilities or advanced biological engineering." "But why?" Lisa asked. "Why would anyone go to such lengths?" "To ensure that when real humans eventually joined the galactic community, they would be feared and isolated." Vorn's voice dropped even lower. "The timing of your appearance now is suspicious. Just as certain power dynamics in the galaxy are shifting." Before Vorn could elaborate, the door burst open despite Lisa's security measures. Security forces from the Dravari Collective stormed in, their weapons drawn. Ambassador Krell followed them, his membrane-like skin rippling with dark patterns of rage. "Researcher Vorn, you have violated Council directive by speaking with these creatures," Krell spat. "Your research was ordered sealed by the High Council." "The historical record should be accurate," Vorn protested as 2 guards grabbed his arms. "The inconsistencies must be addressed." Krell turned to Lisa and Paul, his eyes cold. "And you two are hereby restricted to your quarters when not in formal sessions. Any unauthorized communication with other delegates will result in your immediate expulsion from the conclave." As the guards dragged Vorn away, he managed to twist in their grip. In a seemingly clumsy movement, he bumped into Lisa, but she felt him press something small into her hand. She kept her face neutral, not reacting to the covert handoff. "This is outrageous," Paul protested to Krell. "We have the right to speak with anyone we choose. The Conclave Charter guarantees freedom of association to all delegates. Creatures with your history have no rights here," Krell hissed. "You exist on our tolerance alone." After the Dravari left with Vorn, Lisa showed Paul what the researcher had slipped her, a tiny data chip, smaller than her fingernail, back in the privacy of their quarters. They examined the chip's contents on Paul's tablet, using Earth encryption protocols to prevent monitoring. The chip contained classified intelligence reports. For the past 50 years, the Dravari Collective had been steadily expanding their territory, absorbing smaller species through diplomatic coercion rather than direct conflict. They're using US as a boogeyman, Lisa realized. Keeping the galactic community afraid of humans gives them leverage over smaller species. "Join us for protection against the dangerous humans." Paul was about to respond when his communicator chimed with an emergency transmission from Earth. His face grew pale as he read the message. "Multiple unidentified vessels have been detected approaching the Sol system," he told Lisa. "They're not responding to hails, and their trajectory suggests hostile intent." Lisa felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "It's happening now. Someone doesn't want Earth joining the galactic community, and they're willing to attack us to prevent it." Paul looked up at her, his expression grim. "We need to warn the Conclave. Whether they believe us or not, they need to know what's happening." "And if it's the Dravari behind this?" Lisa asked. "Then we'll have proof of their deception." Paul stood up, determination replacing the shock on his face. "One way or another, we're going to expose the truth." Lisa nodded, her mind already shifting. "To contingency plans?" If Earth was under attack, the peaceful diplomatic mission had just become something very different. And Commander Lisa Ward's combat training might prove more valuable than her diplomatic skills in the hours to come. Day 4 of the summit brought chaos and urgency as news spread rapidly through the conclave that Earth was under attack by an unknown force. Lisa and Paul rushed to the main chamber, ignoring the Dravari order to remain in their quarters. They needed to address the full assembly and request emergency communication channels to their home planet. The main chamber was already filled with delegates, talking excitedly among themselves when the Earth representatives entered. Several looked up in surprise. Clearly having heard about the attack on Earth, the Arcturian chairperson was trying to maintain order, her crystalline form glittering under the lights as she raised all 4 arms for silence. "Chairperson, Earth requests immediate speaking privileges," Paul called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "Our planet is under attack and we need to establish emergency communications." The chamber quieted as delegates turned to stare. At the humans, the chairperson nodded gravely. "Ambassador Grant, you have the floor." Paul stepped forward to the central platform. Less than 2 hours ago, Earth Defense Forces detected multiple unidentified vessels entering our solar system. They have not responded to hails and appear to be on an attack vector. We request the use of the Conclave's quantum communication array to contact our government and coordinate a response. Ambassador Krell of the Dravari stood up, his skin flushing with color patterns. "How convenient! An attack just as you're exposed for what you truly are. Perhaps this is another human deception, a ploy to gain sympathy or access to Conclave technology. People are dying." Lisa couldn't contain herself. "This isn't a ploy." The chairperson studied both delegations carefully. "The Conclave stands for peace among all species. If Earth is truly under attack, we have a duty to allow them contact with their government." She gestured to a technician. "Prepare the quantum array for Earth use." Krell protested loudly, but the chairperson overruled him. Lisa and Paul were escorted to a communication room where they could establish a secure link with Earth Defense Command. The screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Ellen Harris, her uniform disheveled and smoke visible in the background of what appeared to be a command center. "Ambassador Grant, Commander Ward, thank God," Harris said, her voice strained. "We're under heavy attack." 18 vessels of unknown design entered the system 3 hours ago and began targeting our orbital defense platforms. They've already destroyed 3 satellites and damaged the lunar base. Can you repel them? Paul asked. We're holding them back for now, but civilian casualties are mounting from debris impacts. We need to know who we're fighting. The attack came without warning or provocation. Lisa stepped closer to the screen. Admiral, can you send us visual data of the attacking ships? A moment later, images appeared on a secondary screen. Lisa and Paul leaned forward, studying the vessels carefully. They were sleek and predatory in design, painted dark red with black markings. Those markings, Paul said quietly. Zoom in on the hull insignia. The image enhanced, revealing a symbol that made Lisa's blood run cold. It matched exactly the insignia they had seen in the museum on ancient Dravari warships from 2 centuries ago. It's them, she whispered. The Dravari are attacking Earth. But why show their hand now? Paul wondered. They've worked for centuries to maintain this deception. Lisa's mind raced through possibilities. Because we're getting too close to the truth. Researcher Vorn's data chip proves they've been manipulating smaller species by keeping them afraid of humans. If we expose that to the Conclave, they'd lose their power, Paul finished. So they're creating a real conflict to justify their lies about the previous one. They quickly briefed Admiral Harris on what they had discovered about the false history and the Dravari deception. Harris looked grim but determined. This confirms a theory our analysts developed when studying the attack patterns, she said. These ships are using tactics identical to those recorded in ancient battle simulations. We've run war games based on fragmented historical records of old Earth conflicts. It's as if they studied how Earth fought in the past and are using it against us. Can you hold them off? Lisa asked. We've identified a weakness in their shielding technology. Our newest defense systems are more advanced than they anticipated. We can repel this attack, but I'm concerned about what comes next. Paul turned to the Conclave technician who had been standing silently by the door. We need to present this evidence to the full assembly immediately. When they returned to the main chamber, chaos had only increased. Delegates were arguing loudly, some calling for the humans to be expelled from the Conclave, others demanding a peacekeeping fleet be sent to investigate the situation at Earth. Silence. The chairperson's amplified voice cut through the noise. The Earth delegation will present their findings. Paul connected their tablet to the central display system. Images of the attacking fleet appeared on the large screens around the chamber, alongside historical images from the museum archives. The fleet attacking Earth bears markings identical to ancient Dravari vessels, Paul announced. The same vessels that fought in the Orion conflict 2 centuries ago. Gasps and murmurs spread through the chamber. Ambassador Krell leapt to his feet. This is an outrageous accusation. The Dravari Collective has no vessels in Earth space. Then explain these, Lisa said, displaying the comparison images side by side, and explain why your delegation had researcher Vorn arrested when he discovered inconsistencies in the historical record of the so-called human attacks. Before Krell could respond, the doors to the chamber burst open. Researcher Vorn stumbled in, supported by Kate from the Centauri delegation. His gray skin was bruised, but his eyes were clear and determined. I escaped detention, he announced. And I have proof of the Dravari deception. He held up a data crystal. Ancient star charts showing that the Dravari home system was directly in the path between Earth and the Orion sector. Vorn limped to the central platform. They've been intercepting and eliminating exploratory missions from Earth for centuries, he explained as the star charts appeared on the displays. The humans in the Orion conflict were likely Earth colonists who found another path to the stars, only to be framed for atrocities they didn't commit. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and accusations. Ambassador Krell looked around wildly, seeing his centuries-old deception unraveling before his eyes. His skin flashed with rapid color changes, patterns that Lisa now recognized as extreme. Agitation. Enough! Krell shouted, his voice cutting through the uproar. In that moment, he abandoned all pretense of diplomacy. Your ancestors were too unpredictable, too dangerous to allow into our ordered galaxy. Yes, we destroyed your early missions. Yes, we framed your kind for atrocities. And now we will finish what we started." With a sharp gesture, Krell activated a device on his wrist. Throughout the chamber, other Dravari representatives did the same. Suddenly, the security systems that protected the conclave turned inward. Defense turrets emerging from walls and ceilings to target the delegates themselves. Lisa reacted instantly, tackling Paul and Kate to the floor as energy beams sliced through the air where they had been standing. All around the chamber, delegates scattered in panic as the Dravari revealed their true intentions. "This is why Earth never sends its military to peace summits," Lisa whispered to herself as she assessed the situation, looking for weapons, exits, and tactical advantages. The galaxy was about to learn that even Earth's diplomats were never truly unprepared for conflict. Chaos filled the conclave chamber as automated security weapons fired at delegates. Screams and shouts echoed off the walls as representatives from dozens of species scrambled for cover behind overturned furniture. The Dravari guards had sealed the main exits, trapping everyone inside what had quickly become a death chamber. Ambassador Krell stood calmly in the center of the room, protected by a personal energy shield. "The time for deception is over," he announced to the terrified delegates. "For centuries, we have guided the galaxy according to our vision of order. The human threat gave us purpose and unity. Now these creatures threaten everything we have built. None of you will leave to spread their lies." Lisa assessed the situation with the cool detachment her years of combat training had instilled in her. The Dravari had clearly planned this contingency, turning the Conclave's own security systems against the delegates. But like most plans, it wasn't perfect. She noticed that the defense turrets operated on a predictable firing pattern. There were blind spots in their coverage and a 3-second delay between targeting cycles. "Paul, when I move, head for that service panel," she whispered, pointing to a maintenance access point near the floor about 15 meters away. "Kate, take Vorn and follow 10 seconds later." "What are you going to do?" Paul asked, eyes wide. "Create a distraction." Lisa slipped off her formal diplomatic jacket, revealing the fitted black undersuit that all Earth representatives wore. Unlike standard diplomatic attire, this material was made of impact-resistant fibers that could temporarily resist energy weapons. Another unique feature of Earth's approach to diplomacy that now made perfect sense. In one smooth motion, Lisa rolled from their position to a nearby column, drawing fire from 3 security turrets. As they tracked her movement, she sprinted across open space, dodging and weaving unpredictably. The delegates watched in shock as the seemingly ordinary human diplomat moved with the grace and precision of a trained combatant. Lisa reached the main control panel for the chamber's environmental systems. With 2 sharp strikes, she broke through the protective covering and grabbed a handful of wiring. Yanking hard, she triggered an emergency response. The fire suppression system activated, spraying dense white fog throughout the chamber and obscuring the targeting sensors of the security turrets. Through the thickening fog, Lisa saw Paul reach the service panel and pull it open. Kate and Vorn were moving toward him. Staying low, good. Phase 1 of her improvised plan was working. Ambassador Krell shouted orders to his guards as the automated defenses became less effective in the fog. "Find the humans. Kill them first." Lisa moved silently through the chaos, approaching a Dravari guard from behind. She struck precisely at the base of his neck, a spot she had observed was sensitive on their species during the previous days. The guard collapsed without a sound. Lisa took his weapon and moved on to her next target. Across the chamber, other delegates had begun fighting back. The Arcturian chairperson used her crystalline form to reflect energy beams back at the security turrets. The massive delegates from the high-gravity world of Brontus simply tore turrets from the ceiling with their powerful arms. Lisa reached Paul, Kate, and Vorn at the service tunnel entrance. "This should lead to the communication center," Vorn said, studying a small holographic map projected from his wrist device. From there, we can send an emergency signal to the Galactic Peacekeeping Fleet and alert Earth about the Dravari ships' weakness, Paul added. They moved quickly through the narrow maintenance tunnels, hearing the sounds of conflict echo behind them. Lisa led the way, the appropriated Dravari weapon held ready. When they reached a junction, she heard voices ahead and signaled the others to stop. "Dravari guards," she whispered. "Two of them. We can't go back," Kate said. Lisa nodded. "Stay." Here, she moved forward silently, becoming one with the shadows of the dimly lit tunnel. The guards never saw her coming. 30 seconds later, she returned. Path is clear. They reached the communication center to find it abandoned, the staff having fled when the attack began. Paul immediately went to the main console while Vorn secured the door. "I can send a wideband distress signal that will reach both Earth and the Galactic Peacekeeping Fleet," Paul said, his fingers flying over the controls. Lisa kept watch at the entrance. "Make it fast. The Dravari will figure out where we went." Soon enough, Kate joined Paul at the console. "I can help." Centauri are good with communication systems. Together, they bypassed security protocols and established a direct link to Earth Defense Command. Admiral Harris appeared on screen, looking battle-worn but determined. "Ambassador Grant report." Paul quickly explained the situation while Vorn transmitted his evidence of the Dravari deception. "The attack on Earth is part of a centuries-old conspiracy. The Dravari have been preventing human expansion into space and framing us for atrocities we never committed." "That confirms what we've discovered," Harris replied. "We've analyzed their attack patterns and found a critical weakness in their shielding technology. Our defense forces have repelled the initial assault, but more Dravari ships are gathering at the edge of our system." "The Dravari have taken control of the Conclave Station," Lisa reported. "They're holding the delegates hostage or worse." "Help is coming," Harris assured them. "When we detected the attack, we activated our emergency protocols. Earth ships are already en route to your location." Lisa looked surprised. "Earth ships? But we don't have a military fleet with FTL capability yet." Harris smiled grimly. "That's what the galaxy was meant to believe. After our first exploratory vessels disappeared mysteriously, Earth developed a policy of caution. We've been building a defensive fleet in secret for the past decade, hiding them in the outer solar system. The galaxy may think we're newcomers to space, but we've learned to be prepared." The door to the communication center shuddered as something heavy slammed against it. The Dravari had found them. "We need to get back to the main chamber and help the other delegates," Lisa said, checking the charge on her weapon. "I'm sending the station schematics to your tablet," Harris told them. "There's a secondary environmental control system that could give you an advantage." The console beeped as the data transfer completed. Lisa studied the schematics quickly, identifying a path back to the main chamber that would take them through the environmental control hub. "Got it," she said. "We need to move now." As they prepared to leave, Vorn caught Lisa's arm. "Why did you help me?" "Your people had every reason to hate my kind after what you learned." Lisa looked at the Tellarite researcher. "Because Earth judges individuals by their actions, not their species. You risked everything to uncover the truth that makes you an ally." The door shuddered again, the metal beginning to buckle. They slipped out through a maintenance hatch just as the Dravari broke through the main door. Moving quickly through the station's service tunnels, they reached the environmental control hub without being detected. Lisa examined the controls, finding the system Harris had mentioned, the atmospheric composition regulators. "If we adjust the oxygen-nitrogen mix, we can create an atmosphere that's still breathable for most species but will slow down the Dravari," Lisa explained. "Their membrane-like skin is sensitive to oxygen levels." Paul looked concerned. "Won't that affect the other delegates too?" "Some, but not as severely as the Dravari," Lisa said. "It's our best option." They made the adjustments and continued toward the main chamber. When they arrived, they found a standoff in progress. Many delegates had been captured, but others were fighting back. The Arcturian chairperson had organized a resistance, using improvised weapons and barricades as the atmospheric changes began to take effect. The Dravari guards' movements became sluggish. Their skin dried out visibly, cracking in places. Ambassador Krell staggered, his control device falling from his weakened grip. Lisa seized the moment. "Now!" she shouted to the resisting delegates. They surged forward, overwhelming the weakened Dravari guards. Krell found himself surrounded, his plan collapsing around him. "This changes nothing," he gasped, his voice raspy in the modified atmosphere. "The galaxy will never trust humans now." The Arcturian chairperson stepped forward. "You are wrong, Ambassador Krell. Today we have seen the true nature of both our species." The Dravari claimed to want peace while plotting domination. The humans, who supposedly came here unprepared for conflict, saved us all without taking a single life. A chime sounded throughout the station. The central display activated, showing a fleet of ships approaching the Conclave station. They were sleek and powerful, displaying Earth insignia. "The Earth Defense Fleet," Paul announced, just in time. 1 month later, Lisa stood in the rebuilt Conclave chamber, now wearing a new uniform that properly reflected her dual role as both diplomat and defender. The Galactic Conclave had reconvened on neutral territory. The Dravari Collective had been sanctioned, their leadership replaced with reformers, committed to truth and cooperation. The Arcturian chairperson called the session to order. "Today we welcome Earth as a full member of the galactic community. Their actions during the Dravari crisis demonstrated the best qualities we seek in our members: courage, compassion, and commitment to peace." Later, in a private session with the Conclave leadership, the human ship Northern Star floated silently in orbit around the blue-green planet Xantar. This was the 3rd month of Earth's first diplomatic mission to the Xantari system. Excitement ran high among the crew. Humans had finally met another intelligent species in the vastness of space. The Xantari were an aquatic race with shimmering blue skin and large, expressive eyes that seemed to change color with their emotions. Dr. Frank Miller stood by the viewing window in the ship's main hall. He watched as the Xantari delegation approached, in their bubble-shaped transport vessel. Frank was the mission's lead xenobiologist, specializing in reproductive health across species. At 42, he had spent most of his career studying theoretical alien biology. Now he was meeting the real thing. "Nervous?" asked Captain George Edwards, coming to stand beside him. "Excited," Frank replied, adjusting his uniform collar. 3 months in, and we're still learning so much every day," the captain nodded. "Just remember, today's ceremony is purely diplomatic. Smile, bow when they bow, and try not to accidentally insult anyone." Frank had earned his place on this mission through years of dedicated research. Back on Earth, his small apartment in Chicago sat empty, his cat being cared for by a neighbor. Frank had no wife, no children. His life was his work, and right now his work was making history. The Xantari transport docked with a soft hiss. The airlock cycled, and 6 Xantari diplomats entered the hall. 5 males and 1 female. Frank recognized Ambassador Vila immediately. She was the highest-ranking Xantari they had met so far, her position seemingly more important than any of the males accompanying her. The usual pleasantries began. Humans and Xantari couldn't shake hands due to the significant differences in their biology, but they had developed a greeting that involved bowing slightly while touching their own foreheads. Frank performed this gesture perfectly. Having practiced many times. As the ceremony progressed, Frank noticed something wrong with Ambassador Vila. Her normally bright blue skin had dulled to a pale shade. She seemed to be swaying slightly, and her hand kept moving to her lower abdomen. The other Xantari were casting concerned glances her way, but doing nothing. During a break in the proceedings, Frank approached Dr. Susan Ward, the ship's medical officer. "Susan, is it just me, or does the ambassador seem unwell?" Susan followed his gaze. "You're right. Her color is off, and she's clearly in pain. Should we offer assistance?" Frank hesitated. The first rule of diplomatic contact was non-interference in Xantari matters unless invited. But his medical training made it hard to ignore someone in obvious distress. The ceremony continued with speeches from both sides. Ambassador Vila struggled through her address, her voice weaker than in previous meetings. When she finished, she nearly collapsed back into her seat. Frank could remain silent no longer. During the refreshment period that followed, he carefully approached the ambassador, making sure to keep a respectful distance. "Ambassador Vila, please forgive my directness, but as a medical professional, I notice you appear to be in discomfort. Is there anything we can do to assist?" The translator device on his collar converted his words into the musical tones of Zantari speech. The other Zantari diplomats turned to stare at him, their eye colors shifting to a deep purple that Frank had learned indicated alarm or offense. VL looked at him, her large eyes now a dull gray instead of their usual bright silver. She seemed to be considering whether to respond. Finally, she spoke softly. "Your concern is noted, Dr. Miller. However, this is a private matter. Among our people, certain health issues are not discussed, especially with outsiders." Frank nodded. "Respectfully, I understand, Ambassador. I meant no offense." The lead male Zantari, whose name was Drex, moved between them. "This ceremony is concluded. We will return to our planet now." His tone left no room for discussion. The Zantari delegation departed quickly, supporting Vila as they returned to their transport. Frank watched them leave, a feeling of unease growing inside him. Later that evening, Frank sat in the ship's research lab, reviewing the limited data they had on Zantari physiology. Susan joined him, sliding a cup of coffee across the desk. "Still thinking about the ambassador?" she asked. Frank nodded. "Something's wrong, Susan. Did you notice how the others reacted?" "They were concerned but also reluctant." "Cultural taboos, probably," Susan suggested. "We've seen it before in human history. Some medical conditions carry stigma or shame." Frank pulled up a three-dimensional model of Zantari anatomy on his screen. "According to the information they've shared, Zantari females recently give birth to live young, which they then nurse. Like mammals on Earth," Susan noted. "Similar but different," Frank explained. "Their system is more complex. The young feed through special glands, but the milk ducts connect to a central reservoir here." He pointed to an area in the lower abdomen. "If that gets blocked, Susan's eyes widened. "Toxin buildup, but surely their doctors would know that." "Maybe," Frank said. "Or maybe certain areas of medicine are under-researched due to cultural restrictions." The next morning, Frank was awakened by an urgent message. A Zantari male requested permission to board the Northern Star for a private meeting. To Frank's surprise, it was Krell, Ambassador Vila's mate. Krell sat uncomfortably in the ship's meeting room, his skin a mottled pattern of blue and gray showing extreme stress. "I come without official approval," he admitted. "But Ambassador Vila's condition has worsened overnight. Our medical practitioners seem unable to help." "What are her symptoms?" Frank asked. "Severe pain, fever, weakness. Her skin has turned almost white." Krell's voice trembled. "3 other females have died from similar symptoms in recent cycles. Our doctors say it is simply a rare complication of childbirth that cannot be treated." Frank leaned forward. "Krell, I believe Ambassador Vila may be suffering from a blocked milk duct. On Earth, this happens to human females sometimes after giving birth. If left untreated, it can lead to a serious infection or, in your species' case, possibly fatal toxin buildup." Krell's eyes shifted to yellow, indicating surprise. "How could you know this? You have had so little contact with our people." "Some biological principles are universal," Frank explained gently. "Different species, similar problems." Krell stood abruptly. "Our traditions forbid male involvement in female reproductive health issues, especially non-Zantari males." He paced the room, clearly torn. "But Vila is dying. Our youngest offspring is just 10 days old. There are 4 others who need their mother." Frank waited, letting Krell work through his cultural dilemma. Finally, the Zantari turned to him. "If I brought her here, away from the eyes of our people, could you help her?" Frank met his desperate gaze. "I would certainly try,"